Saturday is a must-win game for both Tennessee and Alabama if you have college football playoff aspirations like we know both the programs do. It's essentially a play-in game. I'll explain why here on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Tuesday morning edition of Locked On Vols, your number one place for news and information regarding your Tennessee Volunteers. Weekday mornings for free, available wherever you get your podcasts. Can't thank you enough, you everydayers. Your part of the show's coming up in segments 2 and 3, where I'll answer your questions. I'm your host, Eric Kane. Really excited to be here this morning, and a big thank you to our friends over at FanDuel for being a part of the show. You can place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you need to do is visit FanDuel.com to go ahead and get started today. A couple of quick hitters here in segment number 1 before I get into your mailbag questions. First, I do want to kind of show my work a little bit on why I think this is a must-win game. And you're probably sitting here, you're watching Tennessee's offense, and you're like, oh, goodness gracious, it feels like every game's a must-win game because this offense just isn't where it needs to be, and it's not. And you know they're struggling, they're penalizing themselves, they're turning the football over. Nico has got to do a better job of not turning the football over. A couple fumbles at Oklahoma, a fumble on the opening drive here against Florida, the turnover at NC State. The picks, the 2 picks at NC State, of course, the pick the other day against Florida. I mean, some of these, they're not all his fault. There's protection issues in front of him, but some are on him, and he's got to do a better job of protecting the football. Tennessee's got to stop self-imploding on some drives, and you got to help your defense out a little bit and play more complementary football. And as I said on yesterday's show, I was encouraged watching the tape over, knowing there's still plenty of things to fix, plenty of things to get better at, and I don't think it's an overnight fix. Like, I don't think coming out against Alabama, Tennessee's all of a sudden going to score 50 points and the offensive line is going to look flawless. But I did think the offensive line got a little bit better from Arkansas to Florida. It needs to take another step from Florida to Alabama. It needs to take another step from Alabama to Kentucky, so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? To get this offense back where it needs to be, it's just a part of growing pains. But nonetheless, you still have college football playoff aspirations. Maybe the offense isn't as good as we thought it was going to be, but you still have college football playoff aspirations. Alabama absolutely has college football playoff aspirations. And I've said it a couple of times this week, and I've heard people disagree with this take, and that's fine because college football is just wild this year, and the SEC truly is taking after an NFL model right now, and I think it's awesome. It makes every single week in the regular season as if it wasn't already, some people would argue, but it makes every single week in college football in the Southeastern Conference just so exciting, and I love it. But Tennessee has a loss on the year at Arkansas. Alabama has a loss on the year at Vanderbilt, okay? And so you're coming into this game, both teams are 5-1, 2-1 in Southeastern Conference play. And I'm not going to back off what we said all offseason that I do believe 10-2 gives you a really good opportunity from this conference to be in the college football playoffs. 9-3 is not going to get you in. Okay, 9-3 is not going to get you in. So you have these two teams with identical records meeting on Saturday for the third Saturday in October, and you look what's coming up for Alabama. Next week you got Missouri, which Missouri, of course, is, it got whipped by Texas A&M a couple weeks ago. Okay, it's not a juggernaut, but you have a game against Missouri. You're on the road in 2 weeks at LSU that's playing really good football right now. You're on the road later in the season at Oklahoma, and we know Oklahoma's not fantastic offensively, but that defense can play. And then, of course, you have the Iron Bowl there at the end of the season where it's always going to be a tough draw between Alabama and Auburn. So specifically the next 2 weeks with Missouri and at LSU, Alabama's going to be challenged. If Alabama loses this game, drops to 5-2, and you have another loss somewhere on that schedule, whether it be Missouri, LSU, at Oklahoma, or against Auburn, Alabama's done. Tennessee, we know Tennessee's schedule. Of course, already a loss to Arkansas. Tennessee, if you were to lose to Alabama, you're sitting at 5-2. And you have games against Kentucky, which is no gimme, and Mississippi State, which is a team you should beat, of course. At Georgia on the road, we know about that. UTEP and at Vanderbilt. It's wild as this is to say right now. Vanderbilt right now is just not an assumed win. Tennessee should still win that game, don't hear me wrong, but it's not an assumed win like it normally is on the schedule. But if Tennessee loses this game to Alabama, and the offense still looks like it does right now, and that's the second loss of the season, I'm sorry, guys. We can have these conversations all day long, but, I mean, in what world would you feel like Tennessee can go on the road and beat Georgia? Georgia's the second best team in the SEC, in my opinion, behind Texas. I think Texas is clearly the best team in the conference. I think Georgia's solid, but Georgia's not as dominant as it's been in years past, meaning dominant defensively, dominant offensively. Georgia lets teams play with them. Georgia plays with its food a little bit. So I don't care, what it kind of looks like. I don't trust Tennessee on the road. So if you lose this game and you have your second loss, sure, if Alabama has a second loss or if Tennessee has a second loss, you run the table, you're in prime position to get an at-large bid to the college football playoff. But you can't tell me, at least for Tennessee's sake, that you have confidence Tennessee's going to go on the road with 2 losses where you are right now as an offensive football team and pull off that upset. I'm not believing it right now. So, again, that's why I think this is a must-win game for college football playoff purposes for both Tennessee and Alabama. We'll see what happens from week to week. It truly is a week-by-week season, and that's the beautiful thing. Like right now, you shouldn't even be thinking about college football playoffs, and I know that the team isn't, but we as fans and media alike can have these conversations. You never know what challenge is going to meet you that next week. But if Tennessee beats Alabama at home, and I think Tennessee's certainly capable of beating Alabama at home, I think the offense is going to start continuing to improve and click. And if you have one explosive play down the field last week, that changes the narrative of the entire game. It truly does. But you got to get it. You got to execute, and Tennessee didn't execute. But if you beat Alabama at home, you're sitting at 6-1. Of course, you should beat Kentucky. You should beat Mississippi State. Even if you lose on the road to Georgia and you're, 8-2 at that point in time, UTEP's a win, that's 9-2. At Vanderbilt, if you handle business there, that's 10-2. And you will still have a body of work of a 10-win season with losses on the road at Arkansas, which is a blemish, but on the road at Georgia with wins over ranked Oklahoma at the time, NC State at the time, Alabama's a top 10 team at the time, and we'll see if anybody else jumps in those polls there. I truly do believe, in terms of playoff implications, this is a must-win game for both Tennessee and Alabama, and it's just adding fuel to that rivalry. That is the third Saturday in October. I think it's wide open. I do. We know about Tennessee. We know Tennessee's limitations on offense right now. We know where Tennessee is defensively. We know all about Tennessee. Alabama, it's a solid football team. Don't get me wrong. And we'll talk tons of Jalen Milroe, tons of 17-year-old Ryan Williams, a lot about that new look defense for Alabama. They still have solid players, but they're a bit all over the map, especially defensively. And Jalen Milroe, I think, when he's on, one of the best football players in the country, for sure. When he's off, very suspect. He's on way more than he's off, but when he's off, very suspect. He was off against Vanderbilt. He was off for the most part against South Carolina. He was very much off against South Florida earlier this year. I think this is so winnable for Tennessee, and we'll tell you how Tennessee's going to win this football game against Alabama as the week goes on. But must-win game. College football playoff implications, must-win game for both Tennessee and Alabama. Please let me know if you disagree at _Caner and at Locked On Vols. Big news on Monday, and this was expected. This was the expected outcome. Keenan Pili, the linebacker, is going to be out for the season. We'll talk more about that. Several of you guys have questions about that. Hate it for him. Such a good guy. Works so hard. Overcomes so many different injuries, and he's a productive player. Your leading tackler. And Tennessee's going to have to find a way to move on without him, and that just stinks. I hate that for him, but that was announced on Monday. Keenan Pili, linebacker, is going to be out for the season. James Pierce, defensive lineman of the week from the SEC. Boo Carter, freshman of the week from the SEC, so congratulations to both of them. Some hoops notes real quick. Tennessee basketball checks in at number 12 preseason in the AP poll. That's exciting. Number 3 in the Southeastern Conference. And point guard Zakiya Ziegler has been named to the preseason first team All-SEC team. We're all football right now, but hey, basketball is coming. And when you're an all-sports school like Tennessee, never a dull moment, always something to talk about. And we talk about it all right here on Locked On Vols. I'm going to read your questions, going to do my best to answer your questions in the next couple of segments. All that and more when we continue on here with the Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Roy. It's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pulled over $10,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can directly support athletes you love to ensure that all funds go specifically to the player that you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part about it, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver on the content, you get your money back. This week, I'm supporting Christian Charles. I just pitched in $100, and I'd love for you to join me. Even $10 can make a difference. Let's show Christian Charles, who's playing some really good safety right now, love and keep him connected to Tennessee. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets up the team for future success. Plus, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Roy, create an account, enter the referral code Locked On, and you're entered. Already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscription and fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at @Roy_return on you for more info. Roy, support the players, change the game. That is Roy. All right, guys and gals, welcome back into your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kane. Really do appreciate you guys. Check out Locked On SEC. Make that your second listen. Check out Locked On Bama as well. Make that your third listen and watch here this week for Tennessee and Alabama. Hope to get a crossover later in the week from the guys at Locked On Bama. I always appreciate Luke for giving me his time so we can kind of get the feel of what that fan base is. I think it's two fan bases that are like, you have Alabama fans that are upset with what Kalen DeBoer's wearing on the sideline. You have Tennessee fans that are upset with what Nico's wearing in the ball walk. I mean, if you're winning, nobody cares about any of this stuff, right? You have two fan bases with two very talented football teams who have stumbled here of late, who are not winning the way that Alabama's used to winning and Tennessee's expecting to win. And you got two fan bases that are really frustrated right now, but it's a big football game any way you want to spin it. Let's get into your mailbag questions. We do it every single Tuesday right here on Locked On Vols. Some of these are not questions, they're statements. I bookmarked some of these from during the game whenever you guys send them to me. Like Jacob here, for instance. He says, Kaner, I feel like I'm watching Jeremy Pruitt again. The defense can only do so much for so long. A sad emoji reaction. And I completely agree, man. I mean, the offense the last 2 weeks has not been fun. We've had shots, but dang it, Nico has pulled a Joe. A little bit. Yeah, I mean, they've been super close. You'd love for Nico to hit those guys in stride. Again, the one to Nimrod down that sideline, the ball was out of bounds. Whether he was supposed to throw it inside or outside, I mean, there was no safety, so I would have thrown it inside. But regardless of where that ball was supposed to be, it was not supposed to be out of bounds, and that would have been a really tough catch. Nonetheless, Jacob, I feel like a lot of us are kind of feeling what you're feeling right there. Let's go here to Twitcher Tuesday. What were your thoughts on going for it from their own 10-yard line? To me, that wasn't coaching with confidence or coaching with a pair. Rather, it was coaching desperate. Do you get that sense that Heupel was desperate there? And if so, is that as troubling to you as it is to me? It worked, but that was probably the most disappointed I've ever been in a game decision this staff since they've got here. Yeah, you know, I kind of jumped the gun and didn't give a coaching grade yesterday when I was doing my Kaner grades because it was kind of a long show, and I was toward the end, and I just forgot, and I apologize. But James, 100%, man. Like, I mean, we asked him about it after the game, and he's like, the way the game was flowing, needed something, you know, all that. I mean, you can say whatever you want to, and it did work, and that's great. If it didn't work, a lot of pressure. If it didn't work and you lost that football game, oh, so can you believe the outrage that would be here? Because you're at your own 10-yard line. Alabama was, I don't want to say guaranteed because they were at the 1-yard line, and James Pierce said, Florida, thinking Alabama already. Florida was inside the Tennessee 25-yard line 4 times in the first half and got 3 points out of it. So it wasn't guaranteed, but that was about, and I went into depth on this on Boogie's show Monday morning, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. I know there's a little crossover here. That was about the poorest decision I think I've ever seen in my life. I mean, what are you doing? Like, what on earth are you doing? Josh Heupel, who's evolved, who's been playing field position, who's been leaning on his defense so much this year, what on earth are you doing? At the 10-yard line? Yeah, coaching desperate. You're right, James. Coaching emotionally? I mean, it worked, and that's great, but yeah, I mean, a couple of plays later, Nico throws a pick. Horrendous decision. but I've made some horrendous decisions in my life as well. I'm not getting paid $9 million for it. That was really, really bad. He's lucky they got that because they're getting criticized a little bit for doing that anyway. If you wouldn't have gotten that and lost that football game, that would have been bad. Let's go to Braden. Why do we not run more cover zero on key third down situations? I feel as if we are never trying to confuse the opposing quarterbacks by bringing 7 or 8 to the line of scrimmage on key passing downs. It seems to always happen against our offense. I just never see us run it ourselves. Yeah, I mean, it happened a lot against, playing Arkansas, playing Oklahoma, a little bit last week at Florida. Like, there's a lot of people around the line of scrimmage, but not all those guys are coming. I mean, I think it was the Arkansas game when I went back and did the rewatch, and I noticed Greg McElroy, whoever was on color for that game, was counting them, saying, like, here's 8 guys at the line of scrimmage, but only like 5 are coming, so a couple of those guys bail out. I don't know. I think that's interesting. Tennessee should certainly move around and show a little bit and try to confuse. They do it a little bit, but not an awful lot. A couple of times you'll walk up Arian Carter at the line, and he'll bail out, and somebody else will come in and take his spot. But cover zero is straight up man-to-man coverage and no help over the top. Cover one is also man-to-man coverage, but you have a free high safety up there. Tennessee was in I have to go back and see exactly what coverage it was, but Tennessee was in man coverage on the 4th and 1. I believe it was the first half when Ricky Gibson had the stop, because the Trey Wilson was in motion and he got it on the jet sweep and Ricky Gibson was following him. And Ricky Gibson made just such a beautiful play running the alley, making that TFL in the back. Arian Carter set the edge. Jeremiah Telander was there, so he couldn't cut back, and Ricky Gibson just ran and made the play. That was beautiful. But because he was in motion, because he was in man coverage, he followed the motion. So that's why I know that they were at least in man coverage in that situation. But yeah, I think Tennessee needs to try to confuse, the offensive line, just like the defenses are trying to confuse Tennessee's offensive line. That is for sure. I'll get a couple more here or get one more here probably before we take a break and answer more of your questions here on the other side. A couple of these questions, we'll go to Caden here. With Pili out for the season, how does that affect the defense having one of the biggest leaders of the team gone? So somebody's going to ask about who's going to replace him. I'll hold off on that, but I'll focus this one on leadership. Keenan Pili is a great leader. Keenan Pili was the missing piece of the puzzle for the linebacker room a season ago. He's the veteran presence. I know all the jokes about him being uncle, grandpa, and all that. He's 26 years old. You don't have hardly any 26-year-olds in college football. He just brings a calmness, a coolness to that room, full of a couple of older guys, but mostly young guys. And they need that. They need the example on how to act off the field, how to act at practice, how to act in the weight room, how to act on the sideline when things aren't going your way. And so he's a great person. He's a great leader for this defense. But, I mean, I don't want to say more importantly, but, I mean, he's a productive player. He's your leading tackler. So, Tennessee's got some leaders all over that defense. I mean, a couple on the defensive line, Andre Turrenton in the back end. I think Tennessee's got some leaders on defense. But Keenan Pili is one of the biggest ones, man. So I hate that for him. And you really hope that some guys can step up and kind of fill that void, and I'll get on who I think that'll be here in a moment. But just a guy that, had tore his ACL. So he was in the recruiting class of 2016. Okay, redshirted, I guess, in 2017 at BYU. Went on his Mormon mission in 2018 and 2019. Came back in 2020, had a great year. Okay, played in 2021, had 3 games, tore his ACL. Came back in 2022 and was okay. 2023 last year, and remember he got a medical, he got a COVID year, and all this is accumulating together while he's still in college. Last year, of course, he messed up his shoulder or whatever it was, and this year plays 6 games, and in the first play or two he tears his ACL, and that's unfortunate. And Keenan, I think, was kind of banged up to begin with coming into that game. That nobody really knows. That's the thing about it. It's like, I mean, guys are banged up. Guys are not 100%. And fans and even me and people in the media, we don't know about it a lot of the times. It just kind of goes to show you that nobody's 100% at the time. So I hate it for him. But he's 26 years old. I would hopefully he gets an opportunity to go do a pro day and somebody takes a look at him. But 26 years old, injury plagued history. Unfortunately, his football career might be done, but man, I hate that for him. But he's going to win in life because he's married and good guy and all that. So, I think Tennessee, back to your question, I think Tennessee's got some leaders, and I think Tennessee's leaders will have to step up. Let's see here. Last one I'll do here for this segment. Preston wants to know, do we even have a chance? I would assume he's talking about against Alabama. Absolutely. Absolutely, Tennessee has a chance. Number one, you're playing at home. Number two, you're playing excellent defense. Number three, I think you're close offensively. I do think you're close. If you hit on a couple of those plays, if you stop imploding on a series where you have 3 back-to-back-to-back sacks, if you stop fumbling, I mean, that's part of football, I get it, but, I mean, how different is that game if Tennessee was marching down the field? Tennessee was guaranteed points if you don't turn it over on that first possession of the game, and then Nico fumbles the exchange when he's trying to pull it out and keep it. I mean, how different is that game if you score a touchdown there? We don't know. We don't know, but I think Tennessee's close to connecting on some plays down the field. The holdings have got to quit. The tackles have got to stop holding. Nico's got to stop staring down his receivers. So, I mean, yeah, there's a laundry list of things here to do, but, like, you don't need all those things to click to win a football game. But, next week, if you do this better, maybe that's enough to win the football game. If you do this better, maybe that's the advantage you need in the football game. Because here's the gosh darn truth, guys. All right, the gosh darn truth. Tennessee's defense, the way they're playing right now, will keep you in every single football game. So, you just want to buy some time for your offense to come around. I do think that that's going to happen. It's not roses right now. There are things that need to be fixed and need to be corrected. But to your point, Preston, do we have a chance? Absolutely, Tennessee has a chance to win this football game, 100%. And again, we'll tell you how they're going to do it this week as you continue to tune in here on Locked On Vols. When we come back, we'll get into more of your mailbag questions, all that and more on a Tuesday show. I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and this NFL season, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch during the middle of the game and you want to check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets, you can do that on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Right now, if you look over at FanDuel Sportsbook for Tennessee and Alabama, Tennessee is a home dog. 2.5 points. 2.5 points going to the Volunteers. Home dog. That totals at 55.5. We'll see how the week goes, but essentially that's a pick 'em. 2.5 points is a pick 'em, okay, essentially. Do you like Tennessee at home? Do you like Tennessee with its defense, or do you like Alabama with probably the two better players on the football field, and Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams? We'll have to see. But anyway, you get your coin in your pocket Saturdays during college football season and Sundays during the NFL season, Monday nights, Thursday nights as well. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All that and more is at FanDuel. Safe, secure, easy to use that. FanDuel.com. FanDuel is where you can make every moment more. All right, guys, we got more of your mailbag questions here on a Tuesday show. Don't forget, Ward Wednesday is coming up tomorrow. We'll look at Jalen Milroe, Pro Football Focus, some of the stats that matter. We'll start diving into the nitty-gritty of who Alabama is. That's coming up on tomorrow's show. But for right now, we'll continue to answer some of your questions. Drew wants to know, what's the best options to replace Keenan Pili? So we talked about the leadership aspect and all that. Now, how are you going to replace him? Well, easy. Tennessee in this base 4-2-5 defense, you have a Mike and you have a Will. Keenan Pili was the Mike. Arian Carter is the Will. The Mike has the green dot helmet communication. And I think that kind of throws a little bit of a wrench in all this, right? At the basis, the Mike and the Will are interchangeable, meaning if you can play Mike, you can play Will. That's how it's supposed to be. You have your preferences, right? Like, you have your first string, second string, like your Mike, second team Mike, first team Will, all that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, can be interchangeable. That's why, like last year, Arian Carter came in and played a little bit of both. Jeremiah Telander came in and played a little bit of both. Caleb Perry could come in and play a little bit of both right now. But Jeremiah Telander is your backup Mike. Somebody had me talking about Jeremy Pruitt earlier in the Mailbag show. Josh Heupel was asked about who's going to be the communicator on defense with that in-helmet communication, that green dot. And he said, well, it'll either be Arian Carter or Jeremiah Telander. They haven't finalized that. It's going to be Jeremiah Telander, in my opinion. That would just make sense because Arian Carter is already out there and playing your Will spot. So Jeremiah Telander is going to be a starting linebacker now. He's made some plays. I think he's having a really, really good year. Still young, still green in some areas, but he's a pretty solid player. So you're going to have two sophomores as your starting linebackers right now, and Arian Carter and Jeremiah Telander. Here's the kicker, though. Somebody needs to be a true backup Mike now, okay? And somebody needs to have equipment and all that type of stuff to be ready to go in and be the communicator if Telander needs to come off the field. Telander never came off the field the other night. If you look at the snap counts, like Telander played like 15 more snaps than Arian Carter because he was the Mike. He had the in-helmet communication, and he couldn't come off the field. So, Caleb Perry is kind of that obvious one for me, right? Caleb Perry, he's a package player, third down player. Last week when they went 4-3, he was out there a ton of the time. He's played some football for you the last couple of years and played a ton of special teams. He would be the obvious choice for me. So moving forward, you'll have a lot of Arian Carter, Jeremiah Telander, that tandem. I think you'll have Caleb Perry, Jalen Smith, who, didn't have his best football game against Florida. But he went in and did some things against NC State earlier in the year, and he's gotten a little bit of playing time here and there. So he's just going to continue to get better. And I do think that he has some limitations, and I do think that he'll probably have the smallest snap count of this group of four. But I think you're going to see some Jalen Smith as well. We'll see what the injury status is over the next coming days of Edwin Spillman, true freshman linebacker from Lonesome Academy. He missed the first 2 games of the season, came back, played against Kent State, played against Oklahoma, was in some serious big-time snaps and series against Oklahoma on the road, and then he's missed the last 2 games with an injury. So we'll have to see exactly kind of where he is with his injury, but if he's healthy and when he's healthy, he's in that rotation as well. So to answer your question, Jeremiah Telander, Arian Carter, your starters, Caleb Perry, Jalen Smith, your backups, and then Edwin Spillman. You've kind of gone from having a lot of options to being kind of thin. And you're not thin like where you were last year, and you're not thin like where you were in 2021 when you literally played the entire season with 4 linebackers, and then Juju Mitchell got hurt like in week 3, and you played the rest of the way with 3 linebackers. Solon Page, Aaron Beasley, who was not the Aaron Beasley that he turned into, and Jeremy Banks. You got away with that back then because your offense was scoring at a high rate. It's not happening right now, so it's really critical for the offense to continue to get better. But I think you're better at linebacker than you were in 2021. I do, but you are kind of thin right now. So, Drew, I appreciate the questions there. Let's go to Josh. How can an offensive line with this many years of experience look this bad day in and day out? John Campbell's perplexing because we've seen John Campbell play really good football here. We saw it last year. I don't think he's 100%. I think that he is hurting, and I think that he is. I think he plays emotional, but more than anything, he's being penalized like crazy. 2 holding penalties the other night, a personal foul. The personal foul's got to stop. It's almost like he's got 1 a game. At least that's what it feels like. I think I'd rotate in Dane Davis over there. And yes, I understand Dane Davis did not play his best football game in Norman. I get that. I wholeheartedly remember that. But I'm kind of surprised that Dane Davis didn't play a little bit more than what he did the other night. I think there's actually a question coming up about Dane Davis, and I'll get to that here in a moment. But John Campbell's kind of perplexing. Lance Hurd, again, we've talked about this a ton. I think he's not in football shape because he missed a month and he missed a ton of fall camp. Okay, and I think that when you're not in football shape and you get tired, you become lazy with your technique and you get flagged and you give up sacks. For him, I think the proof's in the pudding. He's a young guy. I think that there's a lot of talent there. I think he's a pretty good run blocker right now. He's just got to play, just like Nico. He's just got to play. A lot of people did not like Jalen Milroe last year, but the more he play, I mean, there's no teacher-like experience, right? But, Spraggins is not having a very solid year. Andre Carrick, I think, has been the best offensive lineman, and I would not have guessed that in 7 tries. If you had five for the lineman and 2 additional, 7 tries. If you would ask me that in preseason, I wouldn't have guessed it. But they just got to figure it out. I asked Josh Heupel, I was like, did you see any? Because I remember I went back and watched the tape, and I was a little bit encouraged because I saw things that were good for Tennessee. And I asked Josh Heupel on Monday. I said, hey, did you see any improvements from after the Arkansas tape to after the Florida tape? And he said, yeah, I saw some improvements. But the biggest thing here is, you have an offensive line, 4 are doing what they need to do and 1's not. And that can derail the play. It's not like wide receiver where you can have 2 wide receivers playing what they need to do and 1 doing their own thing and still have an explosive play. Up front, you got to have 5 working in unison. And Tennessee's just not there right now. So hopefully Tennessee will get there. Let's go to Austin. Why are we going away from 12 personnel? Feels like our tight ends are pretty athletic out of the backfield and off the line. Would love to see some more tight end screens like we saw late in the game on Saturday. I think 12 personnel is a wrinkle that I have in this offense that you'll see a little bit on a game-to-game basis, but I don't think we're ever going to see 12 personnel be the game plan like it was against NC State. Maybe it is, but like that's not Tennessee's base. But it's something that it has and something it can run. Certainly with you have 3 tight ends that you like, you can do it. I think in short yardage situations, you saw the other night, they went to 12, and then they went to 32, which was 3 running backs and 2 tight ends, which was awesome. But that's never going to be your base personnel, but something you can fall back on. A couple more here. Can Vols defense hold Bama to under 20 points? I think that'll be tough. I do. I'm not saying that Alabama's going to score a ton, but I think holding Alabama's defense to under 20 will be tough. That means your offense has got to come around. Like, can Tennessee win a 24-21 game? Can Tennessee win a 28-25 game? Can this game be in the 20s? If this game's in the 20s, can Tennessee's offense give you enough points? That's the biggest thing this week for me, right? Because I think it'll be low scoring. I do. But it's up to the offense to give you some points there, because I don't think, to answer your question, that Tennessee will hold Alabama to less than 20 points. We'll see. I hope so. But that's kind of tough to do. Jeremy says, was Dane Davis really as bad as they said he was on Saturday? You couldn't even tell he was in the game, and to me, that's good if you're an offensive lineman. It isn't recognized. 74 isn't the answer. Yeah, I haven't heard anything bad or negative about Dane Davis the other night. Dane Davis played 10 snaps. He barely played. So I'm kind of with you. I haven't. I didn't know I knew because I look at that stuff every single series, but I haven't heard anything negative about him, to be completely honest with you. Let's see here. Jared says, since Nico's jittery from the constant pressure he's gotten in the pocket from SEC fronts, what makes anyone think this can be fixed anytime this season, given what we've seen at the tackle positions? Hope we can get it fixed so he can relax and enable him to process things better. Yeah, I heard Jason Swain say this on the radio show when I was driving home the other day. Like, if you walk through a door every single day and get hit on the side of the head, every single day you're going to walk in and expect to be hit on that side of the head, right? So it's like, if you drop back and you're expecting pressure, then yeah, you're kind of getting jittery. And so it's not an immediate fix. It's a slow fix. Can you be better than where you were last week? That's the question. And that's what, you got to see from Tennessee week in and week out. And I still think they need to roll him out. You can't roll him out every play, but I think they need to roll Nico out because he's better out of the pocket. He is. Last question. Let's see here. Last question's going to go to NBA Ball Boy. Nice and simple. What's the problem with the offense? Have the offensive line issues led Nico to hearing footsteps? Kind of just talked about that. Is there a governor on the play calling? What is the stick in our spokes on that side of the football? It's a number of things. Again, I think Nico's playing like a redshirt freshman first-year starter. Okay, I think he's staring down receivers at times. I think he's making bad decisions, throwing in a couple coverages, double or triple. That's got to stop. I think the offensive lines are having issues. I do. I think the receivers have not. I thought the receivers were better last week, but I don't think the receivers have been great. When you're expecting a 12-yard dig and you run a 16-yard dig, it looks like it's a bad throw by the quarterback. But nobody knows that because the receiver ran the wrong route, running too deep in the route. More than anything, it starts with protection. It always starts with protection. But at the end of the day, Nico's got to play better. He's got to hit guys in stride. Look, again, I'll continue to say this. The offense last week had guys running behind the secondary. Hit them. Make the catch. Chaz Nimrod, there are two one that he dropped, one deep down the field that I thought he could have made the catch when he was looking for a flag. And I'm a fan of Chaz Nimrod. I did not think he had a good game. Make the catch. Nico, make the throw. Okay? This is what you want. You want guys running beyond the secondary. We're talking about receivers not getting open. They were open against Florida. Got to go connect. Got to go execute. It's not a fix that you're going to see just like a light switch. But I do think that Tennessee's offense improved a little bit. You just need to continue to improve and maybe take a bigger step than you did last week. And with the way your defense is playing right now, that should be good enough to win you some football games. So anyway, appreciate you guys as always for sending in your mailbag questions. We do it every single week. We call it Mailbag Edition of the show, Twitter Tuesday in segments 2 and 3. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, so can't thank you guys enough. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you can. Hit that like button, that thumbs up, that heart. It helps this show, this video grow on YouTube. We want more and more Tennessee fans to be a part of our little group. And, of course, download us wherever you get your podcasts. Again, we're free and available wherever you listen and wherever you watch. Josh Ward coming up for a little Ward Wednesday tomorrow. We'll take a look at Alabama, Jalen Milroe, all that and more. Third Saturday in October. Get excited, guys. The 5-1 Tennessee Volunteers, 2-1 in SEC play. Welcome. The 5-1 Alabama Crimson Tide, 2-1 in SEC play. Hello. Third Saturday in October. It is a play-in game to the college football playoffs, in my opinion. Get psyched. We'll get you psyched right here on Locked On Vols tomorrow. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody.